Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bfi Film Academy's December Lab. My name is Alex, and I'm the Film Academy Festival and Events producer. Today's session has been inspired by an event that the Film Academy Young Programmers curated for the London Film Festival last month. And it's called What's Stopping Young People from Getting into the Film Industry? If you haven't seen this event, I would highly recommend you check it out on the BFI YouTube channel. We were really blown away at how well the event was received. And we wanted to focus today's lab on one particular topic that kept coming up as part of that discussion. And so today we'll be exploring and spotlighting some of the national and regional talent schemes and programs that exist for emerging filmmakers around the country. So people who live outside of London. And following our discussion today, we'll also hold the first ever Film Academy's virtual networking session. So for all of you emerging filmmakers based all across UK to meet each other, discuss what local programs there are available in your areas that you know of, that you've taken part in, maybe discuss the challenges of living and working and trying to start a career in the industry outside of London, and also just to get to know each other and share your work with each other and potentially maybe start some collaborations with each other. So that event will start at 2:30 p.m. today, and the registrations are still open. We'll post the link to the Eventbrite for that event in the chat box shortly. But yeah, if you want to sign up for it, the registrations will be open until 2 o'clock. If you are unable to take part in that virtual networking session, then we also have our Facebook networking group that we started a few months ago for you guys. We'll post the link to it in the chat box shortly as well. So if you want to join that group, then you can share your work and your contact details with each other and start collaborating. I wanted to introduce you to some of the Film Academy team who you'll be interacting with today, who are working behind the scenes. So my colleague Noor is managing the chat box today. So do keep saying hello, introducing yourselves, tell us what projects you're working on at the moment. But also if you have any specific questions for our team, so questions about the BFI, questions about the Film Academy or our labs, then please feel free to ask Noor in the chat box. My colleague Laura is managing the Q&A box though. So if you have any questions for our panelists or for our host today, then please do put them in the Q&A box, which you can see in the bottom of your Zoom screens. And we'll allocate the last 15 minutes of today's session for your questions. I would like to thank our partners, Reuben Foundation, who support all BFI education events, and also Lacey, who are our competition partner today and who will be giving away a hard drive at the end of this session. And just like we normally do in our lab sessions, we'll be awarding the best question asked. So do put your full names when you are asking the questions. And obviously, just to clarify, it's the best question asked of our panelists in the Q&A box. So not the questions that you're asking Noor in the chat box. We will not be looking at those. So yeah, get your thinking caps on. And if you did sign up to be part of the Lacey competition when you were originally signing up for this event, then do stick around until the very end of the session, because that's when we'll be announcing the winner. And if you're not around to claim your prize live, then we'll move on to calling another name. So do make sure you stick around. Today's panel discussion will be hosted by Abena Taylor-Smith. Abena is an award-winning writer and director based in Sheffield, whose first short film, Ladies' Day, was supported by Creative England and Sky Arts as part of the Shortflix Talent program. And Abena will introduce you to our panelists today, but I just wanted to let you know that one of the panelists, Yasmin Ali, will unfortunately not be able to join us today because she's not feeling very well. However, Abena will give you a little bit of background on Yasmin and the programs that she participated in. And if you have any questions that you feel like are very specific to Yasmin and can't be answered by other panelists or by Abena, then Yasmin has kindly offered to answer your questions when she's feeling a little bit better over Twitter or LinkedIn. So Noor will share Yasmin's details for Twitter and LinkedIn in the chat box shortly as well. Just to also let you know that today's session is being recorded, and we'll be posting the link to the recording across our social channels soon, hopefully next week. And that's it. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Abena to introduce you to our lovely panelists today. Enjoy the session.
Hi everyone, I'm Abena. It's really, really great to have you here. I'd like to introduce my panelists. So I'm joined by Gwenfair Hawkins, who is a development exec at Film Cymru. She's got a background in political theatre, both writing and directing, and she's worked at the Bristol Old Vic, National Theatre Live, and is currently across the Bfi Network Wales Film Funds. I'm joined by Noor Abdel-Razik, who is a trained journalist and researcher with broadcast credits on BBC Scotland, Channel 4 and BBC One. She's an alumnus of the Channel 4 production training scheme. And I'm also joined by Steve Gear, who is the founding director of Calling the Shots, a production company centred around widening participation in the arts and creative media. He's the project manager of New Creatives, and he runs the Bfi Academy animation camp. Hi all, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Right, so in terms of being regional filmmakers, I know we've got like you from all over the country at the moment. We've got some based in Bristol, Scotland. I'm from Sheffield, and yeah, Yasmin, who can't be with us today, is from Liverpool as well. Just to introduce her quickly, she's a filmmaker, a writer. She came up through the Liverpool Edinburgh Playhouse Young Writers Scheme, and she's also an alumnus of the Channel 4 production training scheme. She's also the founder of Halcyon magazine, an online platform built to celebrate the work of Muslim women and nuanced representations in the arts. And she's also an associate producer in TV. She works in factual and children's. So, in terms of regional filmmakers, I just wanted to ask you both, all of you, if you could just tell me, how did you get started in film and TV? I think that's a really interesting, easy one for us to kick off. Just give me a mini potted history of your careers to date. We start with Noor.
Yeah, hi. So I live in Glasgow. I've always worked in Glasgow. So just for a mini history, I feel like I applied for just about every single scheme that there was going. So there was a BBC training scheme, which I applied for and interviewed for. There was a Channel 4 training scheme. I took part in the network talent scheme at the Edinburgh TV Festival as well. I was on the BBC Runner pool. And now I'm on the Scottish Documentary Institute's New Voices programme. So that's a really quick whistle-stop tour of the things that I've been involved in.
Gwenfair?
So yeah, as Abena mentioned, I started off in theatre, and I was working with a particular company in Bristol, and they received funding through the University of Bristol to create a film based on this particular text that talks about ballet. So they were first-time filmmakers, I was a first-time producer in film, had no idea what we were doing, but it was because we came from that particular background, I think it was really useful looking at how to diversify the funding of your film. So I know Arts Council England don't typically fund film. You'd go through one of the network hubs principally, but because we put together a sort of exhibition strategy that had us going into old people's homes, we sort of bypassed that particular rule. And then following that, I started work at National Theatre Wales, and I worked a lot with emerging artists. And then a job came up at Film Cymru in terms of Welsh talent coordination, and I had a lot of these contacts already in the theatre world. And in Wales, as in many other places, I think it's important when you're starting out to try and have some sort of portfolio career. So luckily, Film Cymru thought my knowledge, albeit slim, would be applicable, and just worked there and worked my way up, discovered a love for development, but yeah, still work across new and emerging talent, but with a few more now experienced filmmakers on my slate.
How about you, Steve?
Hi everyone. So I started out as a photographer so I did a degree in film and photographic arts, but there was really only a very small block of filmmaking actually on that course. I think I probably did about a 12-week block of filmmaking. But I got myself through, as a student, college, working as a youth worker and working on community projects. So I came out of my course with a degree in photography, and I started working a lot with young people in community darkroom in Peckham in London, and working on a young offenders project teaching photography. So I found that I was combining my knowledge and skills of sort of community and youth work alongside trying to maintain a career as a photographer. And then as I slowly moved more and more into working in film, I really found that skill and that experience of working with young people and working in community settings really influenced and informed the kind of filmmaking that I was doing. So for a number of years, I was making information films for community projects and for charities. And then because I went to work in Ghana, actually, for the Ministry of Education. And there, although I was meant to be making these information films, we ended up being called upon by Ghana TV to make some films about the education system. And that's really, working alongside my Ghanaian colleagues, I learned a huge amount about the process. And that really steered my career then into that kind of sector of making information films for overseas development organizations. And I suppose for me, the kind of passion has always been about using my skills to help people tell their own stories. And that's then led me much more into the sort of area of training. So it's both sort of formal training schemes, which is a big part of what I'm involved in working in at the moment, but also very informal work where we're actually working with an individual or to tell their own stories. So that's been my sort of career journey.
Cool, thank you very much. Something that's really interesting that's come up with all of you, like as you've spoken, is the idea of like following your interests, things that you're passionate about, and also doing like several different things. Like Gwenfair mentioned the term like a portfolio career. And just like in terms of that, can we just like kind of talk to the audience a little bit about what a portfolio career is, and like as creatives, why we do it? Like, why is it useful? Are we just flaky and indecisive? Like, why are we kind of just doing all these different things? Because to the outside, I think it can look like you're lacking commitment, but a lot of the time, like there is a purpose to it. So could you tell us a little bit about that, Gwenfair?
Yeah, so I suppose access to the equipment that you need to make films is one of the biggest sort of hurdles, I think, especially when you're starting out. You might not have that relationship with the kit hirers where they can cut you really great deals. And so for me, I think in terms of the theatre, the sort of site-specific stuff that I was doing, it's just very easy to set up. It could keep us writing, keep us directing, keep us thinking creatively while we were kind of working on those relationships and filmic projects. Also, just to kind of be completely candid, you're not going to be able to pay your rent straight out of film school or anything off the back of your first short film. And there's no shame in being a really good copywriter and doing that while you're also pursuing your first film. So yeah, I think for me it was a kind of combination of both, keeping my creative faculties sharp while I wasn't perhaps working on an active film project, and then also, you know, being afford to go to the cinema every now and again.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add, Noor and Steve?
I think it's just really good to have passion projects on the side as well. So if you're working, for instance, in television, you might be working on a show that you're not 100%, you know, passionate about. You know, it sort of pays the bills and you're good at it, but the sort of the topic at hand isn't 100% what you're interested in, and it's actually really difficult to find those shows to work on. You're never really going to be working on your dream show all the time. So if you can be making films on the side, so for instance, there's a collective up here called Dardishi who make content for North African and Arab women. So I made films for them on the side for their festival, and it just gets you to grips with kit a bit better, and it just means that you can sort of be in control, because where I work, so I'm a researcher just now, and television is very hierarchical, so I get passed down all the things to do. And it just gives you a bit more control, and it allows you to maybe do interviewing when you wouldn't be doing that normally. It would be the producer director that would be doing that. So it just gives you a chance to flex these other skills and just give yourself your own opportunities.
We hear a lot about the gig economy now, don't we? And I think it's something that's always been the way of working in the creative industries. You know, it's always been about working with collaborators on their projects, you know, inputting into other people's work, you know, getting 2 or 3 days or even just a single day's freelance work on a corporate video, or on a you know, or working alongside, you know, on a community project, you know, working as a support worker on a group's creative project. So that model of working, that's certainly very much what I did when I was starting out. I think I taught 1 evening a week, running an evening class. I did 1 day a week working in the community darkroom. So building that kind of career around a number of different employers, working freelance in that way is really, really common in the industry. And I think it's more and more the case now.
I think something in particular as well is when you're learning skills from your like different portfolio careers, and like you might be doing writing here, doing filmmaking or videography, youth work, and those kinds of things. They're giving you all of these transferable skills that you can put into your film work and your creative work. And the other thing is there are opportunities for these kinds of things all over the UK. Like, there is this idea that you have to go to your nearest capital city or go to London specifically in the UK. And I think one of the things when you're talking about like community dark rooms, like if you can find the projects and the local TV stations and the kind of student media and get involved in that, a lot of the time you're able to get closer and more hands-on to do your work than you would do if you had gone to like a large production company and asked for an internship. Because when things are a little bit smaller and a bit more intimate and potentially run by less people, there's more work for less people to do, so you're going to get to do more of those things.
I'd really echo that, Abena. I mean, I actually, because I grew up in London and was a student in London, I had about 4 years working as a freelance, and then I made that journey the other direction. Actually, I ended up moving to Bristol, moving away from London. And when I made that move, I did initially think that I would be having to make that journey back to London to follow work opportunities. But actually, for me, it worked out the other way. You know, I found that I was able to build a career locally in Bristol, you know, through kind of engaging with networks, getting to know people. That's a really key word, networks. You know, I mean, by getting involved in organizations, at the time there was an organization called Picture This, and I met lots of other like-minded creatives, built a network of crew to work with. I got to work on other people's projects, but I also was able to involve them in my projects. And I found I didn't be needing to focus my career back to London. I was actually able to build enough of a career in Bristol to maintain and to eventually set up my own company.
I actually had exactly the same experience as Steve. I graduated and I moved straight to London because I thought, you know, that's where all the theatre jobs are, because that's where all the big theatres are. And for about 2 years, I went for every job going, like from kind of making the tea to when I was feeling a bit more confident, like producer. I don't, like at the age of 21, I was never going to be producing a West End show. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. But I also moved to Bristol, not to say that Bristol is the kind of mecca that everyone should move to kind of to get their career kickstarted. But I found exactly the same. I found a really localized network of makers, and because they were so proactive in their community, organisations like Bristol Vic and Tobacco Factory Theatres were starting to notice them, getting them to work behind the bar, then giving them rehearsal space, offering a loan of equipment. And because they were known and they were passionate about this place, weirdly that passion for the place became, I think there's something really special in the specificity of where you live, because only you can tell those stories that other people might not have any idea about. For example, some of the Welsh-speaking Somali communities in Cardiff, that is such a unique, singular community, and only they can tell that story. Like nobody in kind of Peckham really would have the authenticity to deal with that territory.
I think that's really interesting, the idea of kind of like missioning off somewhere else, like small town to the big city, like I'm gonna make it, and
with your little stick and your handkerchief on your back.
It's very Dick Whittington, and like it's quite like, yeah, it's a very like romantic mythical notion that is kind of like, yeah, it's got its own mythology. Like you just have to do it, you just have to leave wherever it is that you've come from, the people you know, the communities that you're part of, just like leave them all behind and go off and do something else. And like it's a stereotype that hasn't come out of nowhere. So I was just wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the truth of it, and you know, the things that you found that haven't been the case, because I don't want to say like there is no benefit to going to a capital city whatsoever, but also it's not a necessity. And I think one of the things that it comes down to is whether or not you actually want to. If you don't want to, you do not have to. And I think one of the things that's really cool is there is so much like localized television. Like there's this idea that every film or TV program that goes on telly was shot in London, and it's just not the case. So I was just wondering, like, I'll start with you, Noor, if you could tell us a bit about the things that you've worked on in Scotland and the kind of career that you've been able to build yourself, which, you know, looks amazing.
Yeah, sure. So my first ever paid job in TV was on Location, which everyone knows is a British institution, but that's made in Glasgow. So they posted to a Facebook jobs page. That's basically the place where most jobs are posted, if anyone doesn't know. And yeah, applied for that, got in, did 2 days on that, and then someone remembered me and thought I did a good job. And then I got to do, Kevin Hart was doing a tour of the UK for Netflix, so someone recommended me and I got to work on that. Your name means a lot when you're working. People obviously want to work with great people. And then I applied, so all the schemes that I applied for, they were all Glasgow based. So the Channel 4 training scheme, for instance, once I got on that, I was placed at a company for 1 year where I was in-house, and whatever they had going, they would put me on. So I worked on a consumer series called Super Shoppers for Channel 4. I worked on Dispatches on chlorinated chicken for Channel 4. So that was obviously filmed in America, but obviously, you know, filming is really the smallest part of what you're actually doing. It's more, there's so much prep, there's so much fact checking, there's so much archive, you know, which you can all do remotely. You don't need to be in London to do any of that at all. What else did I do? I did a panorama for BBC as well. And obviously there is, you have to go and find the people and interview them. So, you know, I've traveled around the UK filming these stories. But by no means do you need to be, you know, solely in London. And currently I'm working on an antiques restoration show for Channel 4, which is brand new, and that's all entirely filmed in Glasgow. And whilst people are coming from throughout the UK to film with us, it's entirely done here. So yeah, I went to uni in Glasgow. I have never worked in London with a production company based there, but I would 100% say that you don't need to. There are plenty of jobs up here, and just try and tap into them if you can.
Thank you. Anything else, guys?
Oh, sorry, you go, Steve.
Thanks, Ben. I'd just echo what Noor's just been saying, really. So in Bristol, we have, it's a really strong animation sector. It's obviously really well known for the sort of stop motion and 3D animation, but there's a really, really vibrant VFX and computer animation industry. And then also we have Bottle Yard Studios, and there's been a lot of activity happening out of Bristol. And I think, one of the challenges the industry faces is there's almost a saturation of production in London, which has forced a lot of productions to move out of the capital, into other parts of the country. So I'd really echo exactly what Noor was saying. There are a lot of opportunities, there are a lot of productions happening outside of the city. So Gwen, please, Gwenfair.
Yeah, just echoing what both of you are saying, really. So like in Cardiff, I still have the privilege of living in Cardiff, in a capital city, albeit kind of much smaller. And we've got Bad Wolf, who made His Dark Materials, Seven Screen, who made things like Hinterland. We made Doctor Who, Torchwood. There is a lot going on here, but you'd be surprised by the amount of people who work on these programmes who don't actually live in Cardiff. Most people live in the valleys, in West Wales, in rural North Wales, because as Noor said, they'll kind of do pre-production or prep remotely, and that's even more common now, I think, in COVID days. And then they'll just sort of pick up and move sticks for the week that they're needed down the bay. And so I'm a bit jealous of them, because they have both the rolling green hills outside of them in the lead up to it, and then the excitement of being on set. So yeah, for some of them, I think occasionally the drive is an inconvenience. I'd be lying if it wasn't. I'm sure very few of them want to drive back to North Wales at 10 at night. But for the most part, they do it because they want to live in their community, and they still get amazing jobs in cities and all around the country.
Yeah, and like off the top of my head, I think there's Air TV as well, which I think is in York. There's Duck Soup in Leeds. There's a lot of other production companies in Leeds as well. Obviously, Manchester, there's Media City. So I check out all of the different production companies that have a base in there. And obviously, you've got the big ones like BBC and ITV. You've got offices there as well. And I think there might be a Channel 4 hub. The other thing is, like, if there are in your communities like independent production companies, I would really recommend emailing them, getting in touch. Like, obviously do research, look at the websites, look at who works there, what they do, the kind of the TV or film that they've made that you've seen that you've liked. Don't lie. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. But like, if you like it, email them and just get in touch. One of the things that used to be the case is that there would be events like this centered around the BFI in London, and if you couldn't afford a train ticket or a coach ticket, you couldn't get the time off work, you just couldn't go to them. And one of the things that's happened in like COVID times is that a lot of things have gone online, and it makes it easier for regional filmmakers to like meet other people, hang out, talk to them without having to pay, upwards of £60 to get to the capital. So I think there's advantages in this current situation, and particularly if you're not a huge fan of in-person networking, or if you're shy, I don't know, like the idea of being behind a screen and being able to kind of like craft your response in a time that suits you, rather than everything rushing by in real time and being panicked. It's a really good way, it's a really good way to network, basically, because it's on your time rather than on somebody else's. So
I'd like to just pick up on that really quickly. So at BFI Network Wales, I get a lot of emerging filmmakers or companies writing and saying, who are the production companies I should be speaking to? And although I generally will kind of point them in a couple of directions, I think it is important to do your homework. Look at what the BFI network hubs have produced in terms of their short films. Look who the production company is, because at the end of the day, you've got to be a bit kind of guerrilla starting out and kind of do your research, know who's about you, and people will really respect you for that.
I think it's that idea of, number one, like being a self-starter, and kind of like, instead of asking other people to kind of make those introductions or like at the start, without having shown any of your own kind of like get up and go, I think you need to do it, basically. Like you need to be the one, because somebody can be like, oh, you should speak to this person, but if you hate the shows that they make, that is of no use to you whatsoever. So I would really just say, like, do the things that you want to do and that you're passionate about, and kind of follow your interests. And it's all right if you don't know particularly like where the path is leading you, because it will take you somewhere. It's kind of about like finding out. Like not everybody knows where they're going to end up. I think it's some people definitely do. They're like, this is what I've wanted to do since I was 4 and blah blah blah. But it's okay to not know, but you kind of just have to keep moving and keep making decisions that take you close to things that you enjoy doing. One of the things that we've been talking about in that kind of like online networking kind of style is research. It's just so important, but it's also like a career path as well. So if that's something that you're good at, like please do try and like find out like what it is and like where that happens near you. And I'd love to ask Noor a little bit about what being a researcher has involved.
So being a researcher, you normally work to a producer director, and they basically have a million and one things that they're thinking about. So they will, you know, pass that on to you and you'll get that done for them. So it might be setting up shoots. So for doing that, you're looking for locations, you're looking for, and it's just thinking really practically about things. Like we've got a lot of kit, where can we park the car? Like it's genuine common sense a lot of the time. It might be casting that you're doing. So I'm doing that right now. We're trying to find, you know, 60 odd items for an antiques show. What are the great stories that are behind those items? You know, things like that. Trying to think really about storytelling and what is this person going to bring to the show is really important. You might be fact checking, so obviously that's really important. We don't ever want to spread misinformation on our shows that we work on, so you might be doing that. It could be transcribing and logging, going through footage, finding archive. There's really so many different things that you can do. You might work in development, which is all just thinking of ideas, and with that you might have certain technical skills like using Photoshop, using Premiere Pro to cut sizzles and taster tapes for people to watch. So there's really so many different things. It really just depends on the job that you're working on. And also if you're doing studio as well, you might be in the studio as well, sort of making sure that things run smoothly. So yeah, there's just so many different things to learn and to get involved in. So yeah, like what you were saying, Abena, just about it's okay to not know what you want to do, because you might find out just along the way. So I think the best thing to do is just keep learning and just have fun.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Like there are a million different like motivational YouTube panels that like have said the same thing, but I'm just going to echo it. Like it's really easy to like not do well at something that you don't enjoy. So I would just always say like do what you like, and then you'll be motivated to keep going with it, whether or not like, you know, you've made a mistake or not. I think enjoyment is the thing that kind of fuels you. It's not really like dogged determination at something that you're not enjoying. So yeah, I would always go for like interests and passions with that. I wondered if we could just talk a little bit, we touched on it, but like the advantages and disadvantages of being a regional filmmaker, because sometimes like if you're talking to a lot of people who it seems like, you know, they're doing these amazing things in London and they're like, why don't you just come, or something like that, it can get stressful. And I think it's important to remember that like potentially they have something that you don't have, but also you can have something that they don't have. So in terms of like hands-on experience, I would say that's a lot easier to get from smaller production companies closer to where you live. And we also touched on the specificity of stories and kind of like championing communities that you come from. Is there anything else that you guys have found being based in the cities that you're based in? Steve?
What I'd say is I think if you join a small company, I mean, very often what it means is that you get a breadth of experience. because I think with a bigger organization, people tend to be very, very specialized. So just as Noor and Gwenfair have been saying, you know, that you have a very specific role. You're exclusively a researcher, you're exclusively doing fact checking, something like that. Whereas with a very small company, I think the opportunity is there to turn your hand to what's needed. You know, certainly for our organization, we're a very small team. So, you know, when we've had people working for us, then, you know, they'll be doing, they might be editing a sizzle reel, they might be editing, you know, a taster tape for us and doing some research the next day, you know, being out on the shoot, you know. So I think the advantages of joining a small organization is that you'll get a wider experience. So that's just a small tip that I would give. Big organizations are great, I'm not knocking it at all, but I think the opportunities within a small company can be to learn lots of things very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with Steve. Yeah, I've been able to do things. You know, if you're on a small team, so for instance, I was filming interviews with my executive producer, and he just said, I'm going to do camera, you're going to sit in the seat for the eye line, and you're going to ask the questions because you know these things inside out. And that's quite a senior thing to be doing, to be interviewing people for the program. So I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I was at a much bigger organization. Yeah, and I would say in terms of cons for not living in London, you know, it can just feel a bit like FOMO, you know, fear of missing out. When you hear about, oh, like, I'd love to work on that show, that sounds amazing, but, you know, it's with that company that's tied to London. But I will say that there's a lot of obviously remote working going on right now. I saw, for instance, that I think Love Island were looking for people for casting, and they said in the job post, it doesn't matter where you're based. So obviously that would have been something before where you would have needed to, you know, be going into that office every day and seeing that team every day in person, whereas now it's actually like really all up for grabs. And I think that there's a big push to say, so for instance, I just had an interview the other day with a London-based company who said it was an advantage for me to live in Glasgow because the topic of the programme that they're making is looking at Scotland. So, you know, actually I would say just use it to your advantage. You can tap into these communities, you know them better than anyone else. So just riff off that.
Yeah, I think the FOMO thing is real, but for me, it's not so much jobs. I think what I miss is that Cardiff is quite a small place, and I missed having a lot of stimuli when maybe my creative juices weren't flowing so much. But again, now that more things are moving online, I feel a bit less like that. I think professionally, the thing that I sometimes begrudge is the fact that a lot of the projects on my slate are co-produced or produced by London-based producers, and it is so, there is just something about sitting down with that producer face to face and just catching up or hearing about other up and coming companies all around that I do miss. But it just means that, as we sort of touched on a lot, just got to be that much more proactive in reaching out and being like, can we just get on the phone? But yeah, I think those are, being completely honest, those are the things that I miss.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. Like the ability to kind of just be like, oh, there's, you know, £3 cinema tickets at this cool art house thing, or, you know, like I'm gonna just turn up on the day and see if I can get a cheap seat at the theatre and, you know, do that kind of thing. But I think, like, I've certainly found as well, like having been based in Sheffield for the entirety of my film career so far, I really think it's given me like a bit of an edge in terms of like coping with isolation, coping with coronavirus, remote working. And there are so many different things, like, for example, if you're really, really into theatre and you want to see how that's done, obviously it's going to be very difficult to kind of go to the theatre and like put things on now, but plays, they're in playbooks. You can see how they're written, how they're staged, all of that kind of thing. Like there's a lot of things that we can do to kind of skill up remotely. Sorry, Steve, you go ahead.
I just was going to pick up on something you said earlier, actually, Abena. You said about being a self-starter. I think that is such a key skill, really. You know, if you can build the confidence to actually create your own opportunities, I think, you know, you hear people saying things like that. And I think, you know, what really makes you stand out, I mean, we get sent a lot of CVs sent to us speculatively, you know, even when we've not got opportunities available. And what you can really tell is the people who are getting out there and making their own content. You know, you can do your own, you know, no budget, self-funded work, and that's what really makes people stand out. That's what makes people distinctive. If they can, if they're writing in their covering letter and saying, oh, I'm working on this project, it's my passion project, it's something I'm really committed to, I'd love you to see it just to get a little bit of feedback on what we're doing. You know, those are the people that really stand out. And you know, and then when you are looking at CVs, and when you are, you know, when there are opportunities available, you know, those people have got a head start, because, you know, you really get a sense straight away that they're ready to take initiative, that they have they've got ideas, you know, and they're really passionate about finding an in into the industry. So that's what I just wanted to throw in there.
That's really cool. Like, I would echo that as well. I think don't try to overthink it. I would just say, like, yes, be a self-starter, but do it in something that you really enjoy and it will come naturally to you. And yeah, don't try and second guess like what people might be looking for. Just like really just do what you care about, and I promise like you will find other people who care about a similar thing. It's kind of like the whole like very slow, arduous process of like finding your tribe and finding people who have similar interests and want to do similar professional things to you. Yeah, what are other skills that you think are important, guys, in terms of like things that in Corona times, when we're all remote and we can't necessarily go to kind of community classes and stuff like that, what can we do privately at home to kind of like skill up?
Something that I have been doing, well, something that I've just done my whole time, which I think has helped me a lot, is honestly just like having your finger on the pulse of what is going on. I have like a work Twitter, which I use. And I just follow every organisation that is film or television related. So if they're posting an opportunity, I am the first to see it, and trying to sort of get into that. I think that there's been so many online courses as well. Screen Skills have done loads. There's been so many amazing talks that you can just, you know, tap into, like just like this one, where you can hear people speaking about things. I think as well, like just sort of going off what Steve was saying about making your own things, just self-funded. Something that I like to do just privately is whenever I go on holiday, obviously not a lot now, is I don't really take holiday photos as much. I'll take videos just on my phone. And then when I get home, I'll edit that into like a little holiday movie, so that I'm cutting and I am, you know, just understanding a bit more about what shots look good, you know, maybe having fun editing to music, because, you know, as a researcher, I'm not really getting to do that kind of thing. And it's just making me a more well-rounded person. No one needs to see it either. It's just for you. I have a bit of a fear of showing my filming work to people because I don't think it's very good. But, you know, it's not for anyone. Just do it for yourself because you want to practice. And then also think as well, I think about other, like Abena, you sort of mentioned this when you said, you know, plays aren't being staged, but you can read, you know, and you can see how they're set out. You know, look at other forms of storytelling, you know, read books, listen to the radio, listen to podcasts, because that's producing, that's storytelling, that's sound, those are all really important things that you can be skilling up in, which, you know, aren't just, you know, holding a camera and pointing it at things.
I think there's an idea as well, like particularly if you're doing a lot of applications for things, where all of your experience, they say like list your relevant experience, and it can feel like you can only have worked in like one medium, like I only do film, I only do TV or whatever. And I would just say like, however it is that you write the story of yourself in your application, in your actual like creative life, just try and do as many different things as possible, because first of all, it's about trying things out, and second of all, like, it will all become apparent how it's relevant, like, after the event. You kind of need to, like, put those different things together and see what comes out. It's just a bit kaleidoscopic, but yeah, definitely I'm a big advocate for being like omnivorous with your different like kind of arts tastes. And I would also recommend people that you're into, whether that's, you know, filmmakers, radio artists, like writers, whatever, look at their like biographies, the things that they've done, how they came up, because you'll start to piece together that there are like so many different routes and pathways. There's like no one set way in. I think we can get a bit jaded by the idea that like, oh, you have to have gone to film school, which means you have to afford to have gone to film school and stuff like that. And while that is like a huge pathway, it doesn't necessarily have to be your pathway. And there are so many different routes. And I would also say like useful skills to have are like anything that you're good at. If you're really good at something, just make that like a feature in what you try to do. And then you can, you know, obviously learn things that you don't already know and stuff like that. But anything that you're good at or you really enjoy, make that kind of your skill and a part of what you do within like trying to find your niche.
Yeah, just so I've had a bit of a 180 attitude to everything to Noor at the moment, in that I can't do any more online courses or follow anything else, so I just feel overwhelmed. But what I did was, so there's this writer that I've been aware of for ages, and I just think she's hilarious. So I just sent her a Twitter message and was like, how do you feel about us just, I don't know, writing the first episode of a sitcom together? And we put an artificial date 3 weeks ahead, and we don't have to have written a spec script or anything. It can just be a couple of lines or a list of characters, but we're going to meet up and we're kind of setting those sorts of artificial deadlines ourselves. And for me, that's a much easier way of kind of topping up or continuing to grow without feeling overwhelmed, I think. Yeah.
That's really nice as well, because you've got that accountability with that other person,
Yeah.
and they're going to hold you to account, you know, for doing it, because it's really easy to think, oh, I really want to do this, and then it just sits in the
this
back of your
weekend
brain.
I'm going to write my novel. It's like,
yeah,
you're probably not.
So tempting.
I know.
In terms of that, yeah, I think that's really, really cool. In terms of reaching out, I would just say to people like, please don't be shy or don't be nervous, but also don't expect a response, because I can't tell you how many people like I've randomly like emailed, DMs, blah, blah, blah. Just try and make it short and snappy, not like, you know, a 3-page letter. But also like, yeah, don't get downhearted if they don't reply to you. Sometimes they do, and like the more you do, the more responses you will get. But you know, you can hold out, like randomly email somebody and be like, this email was beautiful, like I care so much, this is my idol, I so want them to reply. And then like, just don't be crushed if they don't. I'm not saying they won't, but I'm just saying they might not.
What's always funny is the people who didn't respond, when you meet them a few years later and you're kind of a bit more experienced, and then you're like, bet you wish you'd responded now.
Exactly, like every non-response is a part of your origin story. Just look at it that way. Yeah. In terms of that, I would love to ask all of you on the panel, like an experience of something not going the way you wanted it to, and how you learned from that, or what you learned from that, in your career, that is. Oh,
well, I go first.
I've got too many, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm like,
something that I wanted to talk about is like a key skill is resilience. You will definitely get knocked back. It's really easy to say, oh, I've done this and I've done that. But initially, like, I went to uni to do a law degree, and my plan was, well, I'll go work in film and TV afterwards. And I lasted 3 months and I dropped out, and I worked in Claire's Accessories, piercing children's ears. So, you know, reapplied, got into the course that I wanted to do, which was film and TV, went back, did it. And then during that time, actually, Channel 4 do regional pop-ups around the country. So I was in my 3rd year and I went along to that, and they sort of selected people that had done well in the group work. And I didn't get chosen. And then 2 years later, they came back and they did one in Dundee, and I went along to that one and I did get chosen. And I got invited down to London as a sort of rising star, and, you know, to just hear about more opportunities. And then off that, you know, I got to meet the 4 talent team, and then I felt like I was in a much better place to apply for the Channel 4 training scheme, which I did end up getting on. So I think just don't feel disheartened. Like last week I got a rejection for a role that I know that I could do. But I had an interview, I had 2 interviews after that, and I got both of them. It's really just about not taking it personally, and just knowing your worth and just keeping on trying. And if you really, really believe and are passionate about it, like, it sounds quite soppy, but yeah, you can do it.
Oh, that's lovely. It's not soppy.
I'd also make a case again for doing your own projects, because, you know, as a production company, you know, as a business, you know, we there's very little room to make mistakes, because, you know, companies are, you know, they have to deliver at a certain standard. You know, they've either got a commissioner, whether that's for a corporate or a charity or for a broadcaster, you know, and everyone is risk averse. You know, they don't like taking risks on unknown talent. And that is part of the problem of the industry. That's why it's hard to get in. And so the place to make those mistakes, you know, which you learn so much from, it's so important to try things out, to do risky stuff, and the space to do that, the spaces available to do that are very few and far between. So the more that you kind of experiment in your own areas where you can take those risks and put something out there, put it on YouTube, you know, get feedback on it, you know, that's where you're really, really going to learn. Abena, when you and I were speaking the other day, I mean, you know, before this, you know, this thing of risk taking and learning from your mistakes is such a crucial thing for all of us as creatives. And unfortunately, the industry, as we all know, is very risk averse. So, you know, it is about those spaces to be playful and to take those risks. And so I'd really, you know, I mean, I think that's where some of the schemes, you know, we haven't really talked about that yet, but I mean, somebody mentioned the Sky Arts short flicks scheme. I think, was that?
Yeah,
I've
done that.
Yeah, and you know, I'm also involved in BBC Arts Council New Creatives at the moment, and you know, we've had a number of commissions for 16 to 30s, and it's that kind of scheme where you can, you know, be more experimental, take more risks, because the, you know, they're deliberately creating space for risk taking, because as I keep saying, the industry is generally risk averse. I don't know if the others agree. Do you?
Yeah, I do. I think my point sort of touches on what you've both said. And also, can I apologise? The light's shining on me in a really stripy way, and I'm looking at Noor, and I'm like, you could tell who's the better filmmaker, can't you? With her kind of beautiful lighting. So my one, and I don't know if this is just maybe a kind of personal character flaw, but I think I have a propensity, if one small thing goes wrong in a project, to think, oh, everyone's going to think I'm terrible. You know, I just didn't book that one car, now I'm never going to work again. And a really good lesson for me, I was a PA to an artistic director, and who shall remain nameless, and at the very bottom of an email trail, he might have been less than polite about somebody, and the conversation had gone on, and I was asked to kind of get back in contact with her. So I forwarded her the email, forgetting that there was this few sentences about her right at the bottom, and she immediately emailed back and was like, I need to speak to you both immediately, I'm quite upset about this. And the director was in rehearsals, and I just sat at my desk, like almost hyperventilating, being like, I'm never going to work again, I'm terrible, I'm the world's worst PA. And so I went and told him straight away, I pulled him out of rehearsals, I'm like, I'm really sorry this has happened. And he just sort of looked at it and was like, we all make mistakes, just email her back, say that I'm sorry, I was on a train, something like that, and we'll all move past it. So that was, and then I had a similar thing on the first film that I produced. I think I'd done really well in securing all of the locations, and there was one bit when we were shooting on a beach, then there was this beautiful headland, and we were going to shoot on the headland as well. And I thought I'd secured all of the kind of release forms to shoot in both locations because I thought it was one location. Then about 2 days before, when we were on our final recce, the guy who ran it for the National Trust was like, oh no, that's under a different license. And they'd plotted out this beautiful kind of balletic scene on this headland. And again, I think the directors were quite miffed because they were quite keen on this, but it was a great exercise in us all just sitting back at the table and being like, right, we've got to come up with something else. We've got a few days. What are we going to do? How are we going to use this as a creative challenge as opposed to something that's going to bring us down? So I think, yeah, kind of resilience for me is a big one, and not wallowing if something goes a bit wrong, just being able to kind of be like, right, boots back on, how do we solve it? I think. Yeah,
I think that's so important. And like the thing that's tricky and horrible is like whatever role you find in film and TV, like there's so much rejection involved. Like there are so many schemes, and like I think what would be handy is if we just do a quick brainstorm, whether it's film, TV or theatre, of like the schemes that we're aware of, and everyone can just kind of like go off and like research them. But yeah, there are so many schemes. You'll apply for a lot of them and you will get a lot of rejections, but all you need is for one to take you on, and that can be like an opportunity in which you will learn stuff that you'll probably never forget. And a lot of the time you will learn things that aren't just about, how to do this particular job. It's about like working with people, management, kind of like managing stress, multiple different projects going on at one time, and how you're going to kind of organize all of them and prioritize all of them. One that I saw that came up this year that looked really interesting was called 3 Minutes. It was a music video scheme. So if anyone is interested in making music videos, like visual arts, that kind of thing, I think that is already like closed and like taken on all of its participants, but follow that profile on like Twitter or Instagram and like find out when it's happening next time round. I think the cutoff was either 25 or 26 in terms of age range, but you should definitely check that one out because it looked really interesting. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys have got?
Yeah, there's so PACT diversity schemes just opened up for Glasgow. So I think the closing date is the end of November, I might be wrong, but that's literally just gone live. So if you follow Think Bigger on Twitter, they've just posted that, and that's a 6-month placement with a production company in Glasgow. It's for production coordinators or researchers. So there's one. The network at the Edinburgh TV Festival is run every year. That is incredible. They give you a mentor for a year, which was brilliant for me because I had an amazing woman who would coach me for interviews. So I think mentorship is really important. If you can look at even just mentoring schemes, I believe Screen Skills do them too. Scottish Documentary Institute New Voices is one that I'm on right now. Obviously Channel 4 do sort of regional events and training schemes, and the BBC do apprenticeships, training schemes, specific ones to journalism as well. I think Mama Youth as well. I've not done it, but it seems to be a good one as well. So there's loads out there. I think you just need to be aware of the dates and just make sure that you don't miss the date. And my top tip for applying is think about what makes you unique. There's a million people that want to work in film or television. Like what makes you different to everyone else, and just like hone in on that. That is my number one tip.
So I think in terms of theatre opportunities, the big ones in terms of writing ops are the Bruntwood Prize, Papatango, and looking at Royal Court writing groups. But then I also know that Bristol Vic has a kind of scheme called Ferment, which is for emerging talent, and there's lots of opportunities through that. Similarly, with National Theatre Wales, there's throughout the year rolling opportunities for artists. So again, I think just look up your local theatre in terms of that and see what they're offering. In terms of film, I know working for BFI Network that there's opportunities through each of your hubs. I know that England's slightly different, so perhaps go to the main BFI Network website to find out what your hub does. In terms of what we do at Film Cymru, we have an annual short film scheme called Beacons. We also have a scheme called Horizons, which can either be used for first feature development or for CPD, so to put towards mentorship costs and all that. And analogous to Steve's, is it English New Creatives? Is that the BBC scheme? We have one in Wales that we run with BBC Wales called Folio, which is about kind of micro short films around 3 to 5 minutes in length. New deadlines will be announced in the new year, I think.
Oh, sorry, Steve, you go.
I just wanted to throw in as well about BFI Film Academy, which is age limited. It's 16 to 19, so it's obviously at the younger end of the age range. But we're part of the delivery for one of the national residentials. So we've done, for the last 8 years, we've done a stop motion animation residential, which we're actually, I had hoped we would have had confirmation of funding. We've not heard yet whether it's confirmed for this year, but we're anticipating that there will be 4 national residentials, which will be opening, I think, in the coming days, assuming that funding is confirmed. So calling the shots, we run the stop motion residential in partnership with Aardman and with UE School of Animation. But there is also a documentary production animation residential, a VFX and computer animation residential, and a screenwriting residential. So these are all, I think Noel will be posting the updated link for everyone on those. So these are week-long residentials, which of course, due to COVID, we're not able to deliver it as a face-to-face residential where you literally come together. But for next February, the plan is to run it as an online, a week of intensive workshops that will be open to 16 to 19s. And then of course the NFTS, National Film and Television School, do a 2-week residential, which again, I think they'll be delivering online, subject to COVID. I think you'll have to check the update on that. And they do that, which is very much modelled around the feature film approach to production. So they'll have a camera department, a sound department, and you learn really intensive level skill in each of those departments, and then work together on projects. So if you're in that age range, 16 to 19, of course, all around the UK, there are the short courses, which again, I think Noel's probably posted the link on those. And they've got a variety of closing dates and opportunities.
Also, just another quick one.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe we're going to go for the same one. That'll be interesting.
Oh,
I was going to
what are you going to say?
When you've got a little bit of experience, and not for kind of absolutely emerging talent, but new talent rather, is the BFI Network BAFTA Crew opportunity. That's a really good opportunity that I think then hosts kind of workshops and really good what's this called? Panel discussions throughout the year. So yeah, that's worth having a look out for as well.
That wasn't what I was going to say. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I was just going to say, one of the things to point out with BFI Network BAFTA Crew is if you get on that, you can apply for travel support to get to London. Like, obviously, I don't think it's going to be London-based sessions for quite a while because of Corona times, but that it doesn't necessarily rule you out having the BFI as a hub. You can still be on that as a regional filmmaker and get travel assistance and support and all of those other good stuff that will encourage you to participate and just make that easier. You go ahead, Noor.
Yeah, it was just one more that's just went live as well in Scotland. It's Screen Scotland are looking for trainees for Outlander. So I think they're looking for an AD, SFX people. Oh, there's so many different roles. It's for season 6 of Outlander, and it's based in just outside Glasgow is where they film it. So that's a really good one to take a look at.
I would also say take a look at Screen Skills. They put a lot of opportunities on there. Like make your search criteria really specific, because sometimes it's like finance manager at a production company. And like if you're wanting to like find things that are going to give you creative work or like help you build your skills and you're not good at finance, which I am not, I've just fallen down that trap a long time. So make your search criteria super specific. There's also Screen Yorkshire, which have got a range of different schemes. They've got the boot camp, the boost camp, and beyond Brontes. You'll have to look at some of the criteria for joining that, because some of them are just for people in the Leeds City region. And there's the Liverpool Everyman Playhouse Young Writers Scheme, which, as I mentioned, Yasmin Ali came up through that as well. And that's a theatre-based scheme, which is just like really excellent for building your writing. And there's the BFI Film Hub North Screenwriters Lab as well, which is also for writing. Yeah, I think that is every scheme that I can think of. So
quite well, got quite a few there.
Yeah, I know. I think these have all been put in the chat if you weren't aware. So just look at the chat and try and like copy some of the links or just like favorite them, and you can look at those in your own time. There should be enough there, kind of like, you know, a thread on a jumper, just pull it and you'll start to find other opportunities. I would also recommend following all of these places on Twitter and Instagram, because a lot of the time opportunities get posted there before they get uploaded to websites. Yeah, that would be my advice. So guys, have you got anything last to add before we close for questions or open for questions? No? All right, well, so go and see.
My top tip, if you're applying to things, is read the brief, because I've mentioned already New Creatives. It's been a 2-year scheme, which isn't currently open, but we are hoping it will be open for applications again. And just so many people have applied to New Creatives and actually not read the brief. I think, you know, sometimes people have got a pet project or a passion project that they really want to make, and they're just shooting that off to any opportunity that's there. And sometimes they don't fit the brief that is, you know, is currently being currently open. So that really is a tip, you know, read the brief closely and, you know, understand it and try and tailor what you want to do to the brief, rather than just shoot off your passion project that you want to make. That's my tip.
The one thing I would say on that as well is look at the briefs that you're getting, because sometimes you can have schemes that are sponsored by companies. For example, I recently saw one that was like sponsored by Google. Have a look at it, but it's like you've got to write like a short, and basically your story can't be dystopian about tech. So if you want to write like a dystopian tech story, that is not the scheme for you. Do you know what I mean? So really do look at the small print, because sometimes they will put like criteria on, you know, what your creativity can produce. Yeah. Anyways, we're going to close for questions. And the first one I'd like to go for is one that says, let me just get this up. There are many studio expansions happening around the country. What kind of regional impact do you think these studios will have? Do you think they'll be more accessible and less exclusive? So let's just do it free for all, guys. Who's got thoughts on this one?
Okay, so I chip in. I think, you know, the spread of the industry out of the southeast is definitely a good thing for everybody. It means that there will be, you know, more opportunities. It means that there are, you know, the industry needs new talent. you know, I mean, I think that's the thing you need to remember, that, you know, it feels like it's really hard to get in, but actually the industry is desperate to get those new ideas, you know, to be more representative, to be more inclusive. So I think, you know, the opportunities are there and they are growing.
And I think with some studio expansions, if you can't always find like a staff list, which was always my aim, to try and find the relevant staff member and email them, if there's this sort of cloak of anonymity, don't let that dissuade you. Just go to other production companies that are more open and write to them. Then eventually, if you want to work for that new Netflix studio, you'll have built up the kind of the pool of colleagues and resources anyway. So yeah, if the big one that you want to get in touch with is a bit anonymous, just go for another one. You know, that dream can live another day.
Another one that we've got is, what is the best way to get into script development? I know lots of companies have development executives, but very few look for trainees in these departments. Gwenfair, can you help with that one?
Yeah, as a development executive, I didn't know what development was 3 years ago, but I realised kind of what other people have been saying, that the past experiences I had of kind of writing collaborative theatre, or of editing down our scripts, or of working in a theatre and seeing the scripts that were coming in and what their strengths and weaknesses were, I would just say, just read as much as you can. Read, there are some really good kind of like starter books out there about how to write really good script reports, and just start training your faculties to think that way. Start understanding what structure means and how you can be really precise about it, instead of being like, oh, it was a bit rushed at the end. Why was it rushed? Why didn't that beat come 20 pages earlier? Be really mathematical about it. And then I know a few organizations will look for script readers, and perhaps if you end up in a kind of production role at a small company, those scripts will come in front of you and you can offer your feedback. For me, I'd say, yeah, it's not the most straightforward path, but I think the only advice I can give is try to get as much hands-on experience with scripts that are happening as possible, basically.
I worked as a reader, and how I got into that was I saw quite a few. It's like a kind of weird and like long, depressing story. Basically, last year I applied for so many different roles. This is like mistakes and rejection and resilience, I suppose. So many different ones, and didn't get any of them. And you kind of send your CV off to these like companies that are looking for them, and like nothing happened. I did speculative emails and I was like, I want to be a reader, can I do this, blah blah blah. Absolutely nothing happened. And then sometimes they say, oh, we'll keep your CV on file, and I was like, that's definitely going in the bin. And yeah, basically didn't hear anything for a year, and then I got a completely like out of the blue email from somebody that I had never met or heard of before, and it was kind of like, oh, excuse me, how did you get my email address? And they were like, oh, it was from a CV pool at this production company that I'd applied to like a year previous, and they said we liked your CV and that's why we reached out. So
just thought of a live opportunity as well before I forget, otherwise I will get told off. I think BFI Network are actually on the lookout for readers currently, so that's a good opportunity to check out. Yeah, sort of getting the foot in the door.
And the thing that's wonderful about being a reader is you can do it completely remotely. So I wouldn't put a limit on yourself like to where you're applying to be a reader, especially in pandemic times. Like if there's a production company whose work you really like, just ask them. Yeah, how do you become a reader? That's the question. Yeah, check out that BFI reader scheme. And the other thing I would say is kind of goes without saying, but like read a lot and analyze it in your head. Be one of those really annoying people who's always complaining about film and TV, because that is how you're going to build up those like analytic faculties. Okay, next question. I'm just starting out at filmmaking at 41. Do you have any specific advice for older novice filmmakers?
Go for it.
Oh, I think that's the thing, that there isn't specific advice. It should be exactly the same beginning a film career, no matter what your age.
Yeah,
I think all of the advice that we've given is like still applicable. The only thing that I will say, which like is absolutely not fair, but has turned out to be the case, is a lot of the opportunities and schemes have an age limit, and often that cutoff is 25, which is absolutely ridiculous. But in terms of the experience that you've had and the life experience that you've had, like, I think you know that you're going to be in a better position than kind of like an insecure young person who hasn't had the work and life experience that you've got.
If I can add to that as well, I'd certainly check out Screen Skills, because I know they've been doing a number of courses maybe they've been involved in transport, and there are those skills that they'll have developed are really relevant to working in the film industry, you know, so that, you know, there's a lot of logistics involved in getting crews on, you know, to the right place at the right time. So Screen Skills specifically have actually run a number of courses to encourage people to, with transferable skills, to move into the industry, because there are a lot of areas which are there where there are skill shortages. So for somebody with experience and a career, a previous career, that can be really valuable. So.
Yeah, just to echo that on the transferable skills, there's a woman on my production currently. It's her first role ever in TV, and she worked in hospitality and events before, which is obviously incredible for getting stuff done and managing people, and that's why she got the job, because it's a show with a lot of moving parts that we need someone that can just get on and crack on with it. So yeah, definitely use your transferable skills and think about specifically what they are, and tell the production companies, I've got this and I can give you that, because that is what they're looking for. They want to trust you to do the job.
One of the things that I would like us to go for is, like, can you give some examples of like transferable skills that you think are useful? I've got a question here that it says, for those starting out in the industry with no credits, what work experience should we put on our CVs? What are the transferable skills you're looking for?
I worked in Nando's for 4 years, and I can tell you that it's very stressful being behind there with the grills on. So basically, you know, I was on my feet for long periods of time. I could, you know, deal with stress. I had a high attention to detail, because, you know, you've got to make sure the orders are right. It's working as part of a team. Teamwork and collaboration is so important in this industry. It's also late nights as well. Sometimes we're not getting it till 2 a.m. Yeah, I think that, you know, those skills are really important. I also worked at Tesco as well. I would say that Tesco, you know, I guess it's sort of similar, isn't it? I just want to know, for people that are sort of starting out, it's just that you've got a great attitude, you're really nice, and you want to work hard. So, and also, sorry, if you can, I know it's quite classist, but if you can drive, it just makes such a big difference. Yeah, try get your driver's license. It's a shame, but just obviously with shoots happening, if the PD can have you drive and they can focus on, you know, whatever they've got to do, it's a massive help. So yeah, try get that.
I think my transferable skill was I worked as an office manager before directly before producing my first film, and believe it or not, kind of thinking about it, like, is the stationery cupboard stocked? Do kind of the camera department have all of the kind of one-use stuff that they need? Trying to placate people if they, I don't know, they have to work overtime, managing kind of expectations. Planning a wrap party is very similar to planning a Christmas party, you know, kind of things that you wouldn't think about. Like, but the best piece of CV advice I was ever given, I remember going into this temp agency, and I gave them my CV, and I'd kind of listed the places I've worked for, and some of them sounded pretty impressive, like production, no, not production, there was one production company, or kind of these big organizations, but my role within them, I just didn't really go into detail. And she was like, if I'm looking for a person, I don't care where you've worked, I want to know what you've done. So bulk out the place you've worked with actually like really great details about what you did there. Like, yeah, that would be, and that's what we look at when we look at CVs, is not necessarily where you worked or who you worked for, although, you know, if it's Spielberg, we'll probably call you in for interview, but exactly what you've done on those placements.
Any kind of administration work as well, which includes like budgeting, scheduling, office management, those kinds of things. Also the software that you can use, like, it's weird to me that we have to put like Microsoft Office and like all of these kinds of things when like even in the early 2000s, that was like a classic thing of like being taught at school, but like put it on your CV. If you can do Photoshop or anything like that, super expensive packages, but if you can do them, yeah, put them on. I think those kinds of things, if you know any referencing software, if you've got a driver's license, put that on.
Even if you can use things like Twitter and Instagram, because there could be some people at this company who have no idea, and that could be a key part of their marketing.
Social media marketing.
TikTok as well. Yeah, getting into that, that's really, really good. Also, just something that I thought of there, if you've ever worked with children, that speaks volumes.
Yeah. If you've got education experience, like, I mean, like teaching and stuff like that, because that links into public speaking, like, are you gonna panic if you have to pitch to a room of people or something? Yeah, Steve, do you have anything to add?
I just reinforce everything's been said, really. It's those, you know, people talk about the soft skills, and it's everything that Noor and Gwenfair you've just been mentioning, really. It's, yeah, those are really crucial, really important. People need, it's about people getting on with people. So if you can demonstrate that, you know, you're going to fit in, you're going to, you know, get on with people, that's what teams want. They want somebody who can, you know, hit the ground running, really, and it's all of those skills that are so important.
I've got one question here that says, what do you wish you had known about the industry before you had started out? So let's go.
That actually people are nicer than I thought they'd be. That's a really naff answer, but I sort of imagined it'd be kind of going into like The Devil Wears Prada, Dog Eat Dog, and I was really surprised by actually just like how wonderfully tight you become with your teams, and how, you know, as a producer I was like, oh, the camera department are going to hate me no matter what I do, but they were really there, especially because it's my first film and they were more experienced, to be like, actually this is what night rates are, and and they were like really supportive. And I think that goes for the sort of reaching out to people as well. A lot of the industry is run on goodwill, especially for those emerging, and people are much more generous with their time than you would necessarily think.
Yeah, I would echo everything that you've just said there, and also just you don't need to move to London.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. So I've got a question here that says, what is the difference between a trailer, a show reel, and a sizzle reel? Well, trailer is like a marketing tool, okay? So that is a marketing tool for the finished film. That is what's going to be put on YouTube and in cinemas, and it's going to try and entice customers to go to the cinema to watch this film or TV thing. One thing I should say is, like, the trailer does not have to be an accurate representation of the film. For example, there are loads of cases where the trailer looks amazing and you go and see the film and it's terrible. That's why I say it's a marketing tool. It's to get people to part with their money.
Not a synopsis.
Yeah, exactly. Important. A show reel then is basically, it's clips cut together from footage that you, as like either, you know, director, editor, producer, have worked on. So it's your work edited together into almost like a trailer for your skills. So that is something that you would cut together or ask a friend to help you cut together, and you would put it on, I don't know, your Vimeo page or, you know, your website, send it to people when you're emailing them prospectively and be like, this is an example of things that I've made. That's your show reel. It's almost like a video CV. Try and keep them short. Nobody wants to watch like a 15-minute show reel. Just like keep it really short and snappy. And a lot of the time it's like the best bits and, you know, beautiful images and things that show what you can do as a filmmaker. And then a sizzle reel. A sizzle reel is kind of like, sorry, it's a production tool, and it's kind of like it's almost like a pitching tool. So what a sizzle reel is like, it's like a trailer, but it's cut together from clips of other people's films. So say you're pitching a film that is going to be, you know, a all-female bank robbing heist with 4-year-old children, something like that, silly. But you would cut together different clips from other films that are like it and try to create a story out of footage that you haven't shot to just say it's going to be kind of like this. So you might use clips from other bank robbing films, other films about children behaving badly, and then other like all-female heist movies and be like, you know, it's going to be a cross between Point Break and The Heat, but mixed with Superbad. And like, you use other people's footage basically to make a little mini trailer, which before you've written or shot anything is almost like a proof of concept for what you're trying to do. That's that.
A brilliant explanation. Well
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anything
Really
else,
good.
you're gonna have to Google, my friend. So yeah, that's what that one is. Next.
We often get questions about the differences between trailers and teasers as well. And so we actually, through BFI Network, will fund teasers as a proof of concept, which is footage that you have shot, but it might just be a couple of scenes. And that is normally then sent to people you were trying to get to finance the film. But that's generally if you have a little bit more money to play around with and get some scenes shot.
An interesting one is like, I think Dear White People, they shot a really, really excellent teaser that they used for their what was it, their like Kickstarter or their crowdfunding campaign. So that's an example of how like a teaser can be useful. Like you can shoot your teaser and then use it as a proof of concept, like this is what we're trying to do, but we need more money, and it then becomes basically like an added production value tool for a crowdfunder campaign. Okay.
Can I just jump in? Yeah, with our new creative scheme, the way that we run it in the Southwest is we shortlisted all of the applicants that we really wanted to work with, and they got development. And then we took those ideas to a BBC panel to actually get commissioned. And one of our new creatives had done this amazing sizzle reel of the short that he wanted to make. And the BBC loved it so much they actually wanted to use the sizzle reel, but of course we didn't own the rights to any of it, so we couldn't show the sizzle reel. Just an example of how a good one can really make a great impression.
And I've got one here that says, how important is it to have a mentoring relationship with someone who works in your desired job role? Yeah. Can we go for that one?
Maybe not so important, because the people that have mentored me have been the creative director at the company that I was placed at on the Channel 4 scheme. So he, you know, wasn't particularly doing my job, but he was just like a sort of sounding board for me, and he knew everyone in the company. So if I had any concerns, I could send them off with him. When I did the network, my mentor was a woman who'd worked for BBC and Al Jazeera as journalists. So obviously that was like an avenue that I was exploring, but I haven't actually worked as a journalist per se. But she knew the ins and outs of the BBC, so that was more valuable to me, and how did they interview, and she could coach me on that. And then my current mentor through the Scottish Documentary Institute is a sort of executive that's worked in the BBC and as a woman of colour. So for me, it's more that sort of scheme that I'm on right now is more about confidence and achieving goals and things like that. So having a woman that's been through it all before me and has connections and just has a good overview of things, you know, is really helpful for me to have, and just knows the industry. So I think they don't necessarily need 100% to do the job that you want to do, but it definitely helps. I think that you can just take a lot from different people, and just sort of like, basically a mentor is just like a great sounding board to have, and someone that is, you know, believes in you and will up your confidence. I would say that would be the number one things that I would look for in a mentor.
Okie dokie. One thing I'll say is, like, a mentor is really nice to have if you have one and if you can get it and if that's supportive, but it's not an essential to you progressing your film career. The next one, Noor, what do you think about the studio opening in Leith soon? Do you think the Scottish and maybe British industry might move a bit more to Edinburgh?
Oh God, I hope so. There's like absolutely not much in Edinburgh. It is actually kind of a bit of a thing that if you live in Scotland, you kind of do need to be in Glasgow to sort of make it work. Maybe less so in times of COVID. But yeah, there's very, very little in Edinburgh. So I hope you know that it sort of kicks off. And Scotland, it's such a shame because we get, you know, location scouts coming for these big Amazon series, and it was scouted for Lord of the Rings, for instance, and it's just not happened because we've not had the facilities available. So yeah, I really hope that we can just get more going on here. There's not a lot of drama that happens here. There is some, but not loads compared to the rest of the UK. So it would be great. Yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing, and there should be more investment.
I've got a question here that says, I know that screenwriting and filmmaking are my passion. However, I find myself unable to find the right team to work with. Any tips when you don't feel supported by the people around you? The one thing I would start with the screenwriting section is that all you need to write is a pen and paper, really. And so that would be an excellent one. If you're not supported by people around you, write your own thing. Personally, I prefer writing by myself anyways. So I would give that a go, because you don't really have to answer to anybody else in your work. So yeah, in your writing, I would say other people supportive around you. Like, it's tough, but you can still do it. In filmmaking, that is much harder, unable to find the right team to work with. Yeah,
I suppose it sounds a little bit there like putting the cart before the horse, in that if you're trying to find a team to work with to make a film, make sure your script is what you want to make first. And then if it's authentic to your voice and about what you want to make, you will find that producer who's like, this script is like, I really want to make this. So yeah, I think just, to me, it sounds a bit topsy-turvy. Start with what you want to make, get that to where you want it to be, then approach people to see if they want to collaborate.
I think that's good advice. One we've got here is, would you say it's more valuable to apply for any opportunity in the industry, even if it's not what you're interested in, or wait and try for goals in a specific sector that you want to enter?
I think I'd say follow the opportunities. You know, you don't know what's coming around the corner. It may not be your dream job. It may not be the perfect opportunity for you, but it is about building your network, getting to know people. It's about building your experience. You can always, you know, once you've got your foot in the door, it's easier to steer yourself towards the specific area that you want to work in. But often that first opportunity is the hardest one to, you know, to kickstart your career. So I would follow the opportunities. If you see one, I would follow it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. You need to sort of take what's out there, and especially just with television, because it is very hierarchical. You're never going to start as a director. You're never going to start as a producer. You need to, and also you might do it and you might hate it. So you might actually be like, oh, actually, well, I saw them, what they do in the art department, and I actually think I'd like to do a bit more of that. And then you meet these people and you build up your network, and it's like, oh, who can I speak to now? So yeah, I would definitely agree with Steve on that.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. That is the end of our panel. Thank you for answering all of those questions, and thanks for everyone for tuning in as well. It's been really great.
It's been really fun.
I know, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good luck,
thank you.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abena. Thank you, our lovely panelists. I know that everyone is waiting to find out if you were the winner of the Lacey competition. But before I get to that, I just wanted to tell you that we've put together a short survey for you guys to fill in and tell us what you thought of today's session, of our panelists, of the advice that was given to you. It will only take a couple of minutes to complete. If you can fill it in, please, that would be really great. We do read every single one of them. I also wanted to let you know that our next lab, the December lab, will take place on the 5th of December, and we'll be expanding on the conversation that we started today, so about regional opportunities for filmmakers around the UK. And we'll be really focusing on the early career production opportunities available outside of London. So you've heard about some production companies today, but we'll be spotlighting a few that provide paid traineeships and job opportunities for new talent in TV, feature film, and commercials. And the registrations for this lab will be opening on Monday, the 23rd of November. So keep an eye out on our social channels. But also we, as always, created a Facebook event. If you want to just click on attending that, then you'll be the first to know when the registrations are open and who the panelists are. Noor has posted the link to that Facebook event in the chat. So do click on attending to hear about the December lab. And now for the Lacey competition, thank you so much to everyone who submitted your questions. They were really great. 65 questions is really amazing. I'm sorry that we were not able to get through all of them, but I'll be announcing the winner live. If you hear your name called, please type here in the chat box. I'll give you a few seconds to do so. If I don't hear from you, I'll move on calling the next name. So be ready. So the winner of the Lacey Rugged 2 terabyte hard drive is William France. William. Perfect, William. You're around. Great. Congratulations. I will be in touch next week about mailing your hard drive. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We'll see you at 2:30 for our networking session for those who've signed up for it. If you haven't, then enjoy your weekends, and I'll speak to you in December. Thank you, everyone, again. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.